A hair's breadth away from being caught. Someone asked if I had ever been caught or close to being caught by my husband cheating. Over the years, I've developed a few, shall we say, rules for myself when I get into adventures. You might think I've gotten wiser, but as you'll see, I'm not so lucky. The first and most important rule for me is to never get attached. Many years ago, I had a long-term affair with a man named Don. He was divorced, and it started out as a casual affair, but it gradually grew into something more. I ended up dating Don for 5 years, and we became very close, so close that I was on the verge of leaving my husband for him. Toward the end, it became quite obvious to my husband that I was seeing another man, although I never admitted it. Don wanted more than that. He wanted me to leave my husband and marry him. I was torn and couldn't make a decision. In the end, Don made the decision for me by leaving. I was both heartbroken. Eventually, my marriage was restored, but my husband and I never had the same relationship. The scars are still very visible. I often wonder if I made a big mistake by staying in my marriage. Never again will I let things get that serious. For this reason, I try to socialize with married men. The next rule is that I have always avoided dating when my husband is not on a business trip. I've broken this rule many times, but in general, I prefer to only date men when my husband is out of town. He usually travels about twice a month, so I have plenty of opportunities to get naughty without risking getting caught. My third rule, if you can call it that, is to never invite men into the house. There are many reasons for this, and they are quite obvious. As a rule, there is no negotiation about it. And now for my story. A few years ago, I had an affair with a man named Chris. There was nothing adventurous or special about our affair. It was a typical extramarital affair. We were both married and knew the boundaries of our relationship. I've always enjoyed meeting married men, especially those with children. They know the score. There are no expectations of them other than dirty and nasty vulgarities. The kind of vulgarities they don't get at home after years of marriage. They, like me, are looking for a thrill, a chance to escape from the daily monotony of married life. Chris was an ordinary married man. He had 3 children, so he wasn't about to leave his wife and family. There were no power struggles, no relationship problems, no dating, no courtship. It was all just about vulgarity. Chris's reasons for cheating were typical married men reasons that I had heard many times. Basically, they all boiled down to a lack of vulgarity. You know, the wife lost all interest in it. The thrill was not more than once a month. She refuses to sweet things are very important. Everything became routine and mechanical. There is no spark, etc. Same story as all the other married men engaging in extramarital thrills. I'm sure my husband himself has the same reasons. Chris was a nice man, attractive and kind. To me, however, he was just a flavor of the month. Nothing special, just good entertainment for the times when my husband was out of town on business. We got along well, met each other's needs, and had fun. Chris and I started dating at a hotel. But, as you know, hotels can be expensive. I understood. After all, he had 3 kids and a wife to support. So, our meetings became less frequent than we both wanted. There came a point in our relationship where my husband started traveling less, for no particular reason, just time. Both Chris and I began to get frustrated with the lack of meetings and hot feelings. Chris lived only a few miles away and was eager to meet again. Our time was limited, as were his means. A hotel was out of the question. In a moment of weakness, or maybe just out of impatience, I agreed to have Chris come over to our house when my husband was at the office. We began meeting at my house once a week. They were always quick afternoon visits that met our needs. Of course, I was very careful. I arranged to work from home on Wednesdays, and it became a regular thing for us to meet on that day. I also began to regularly wash the linens every Wednesday immediately after he left. I was very careful not to leave any stains or evidence. He parked the car around the corner and walked to the house. We live on a quiet street, so as far as I can tell, we don't have any nosy neighbors. I was always trying to get Chris excited. One day he came over to our house, and I opened the door wearing very nice lingerie, thigh-high stockings and stiletto heels. I could tell by some movement at his pelvis that he was excited. After a brief kiss and caress in the foyer, I took him upstairs to the bedroom. I began to seduce him slowly, removing his clothes. I sat on the edge of the bed and slowly undid his belt, letting his pants fall to the floor. His clothes were crumpled, and I pulled him closer to stroke him. Chris reached down and pulled my underwear off my shoulders, revealing me. In response, I pulled him to me, finally releasing my arms around him. He quickly pulled off his pants and underwear and took off his shirt. He stood in front of me, excited but also tense. He reached out to me and began to gently touch me, slowly stimulating me. At the same time, I took his throbbing device in my hands and began licking the entire length of it, savoring the taste. Sitting down on the edge of the bed, I started Chris. He had one that was nice, not too big, just the right size for me. While I was pleasuring him, he moved to the bed, and I continued to spend time with him. At that moment, I heard the car door slam. I froze for a moment and listened. I must have been very paranoid about the presence of a man in the house. I figured it was one of the neighbors getting in or out of the car, and after a few seconds of silence, I continued. And then I heard the unmistakable sound of a key unlocking the front door. Oh shit! I jumped up so fast. I was going to run to the front room to see if my husband's car was in the driveway, but it was too late. The front door opened, and I heard him enter the house. I was furious. What the hell is he doing here? I looked at Chris as he jumped off the bed. He was distraught, and there was horror on his face, as I was sure there was on mine. I pointed him to the dressing room and whispered for him to go into it. Where else would he go? It was like a B-comedy movie, only not funny. I had no idea how my husband would react if he found me with another man in our bed. I certainly didn't want to find out. Chris gathered his clothes, disappeared into the closet, and closed the door. I noticed he'd dropped a sock, picked it up, and shoved it under the bed. Panic now gripped me. I was scared and trembling. I was breathing hard, and my heart was pounding in my chest. Shit. What am I gonna do? I'm wearing fucking underwear and stilettos in the middle of the day. How am I going to explain this? I thought about running to the bathroom, but there's no way I'm leaving the bedroom with Chris in the closet for my husband to find. Besides, I didn't have time to change. Oh crap! I heard my husband walk through the main floor into the kitchen. April, are you home? I heard him call out. Out of my last strength, I grabbed my phone, trying to text him and maybe delay him from finding me. And that's when I saw his message. Visited a client and returned home for a quick lunch before heading to the office for a meeting. April, are you there? I heard him call as he started to climb the stairs. Oh shit, I heard his footsteps as he reached the top landing. I quickly looked around the room and noticed that the plaid on the bed was a mess. It was now literally outside the bedroom door. Quickly pulling the covers over me, I sat on the edge of the bed and took a deep breath. I caught a glimpse of myself in the wall mirror and noticed that my hair... Wow, it's a mess. Yeah, that's the messy look right there. Damn. How do I explain this? When he walked into the bedroom, my heart raced and my brain shut down. I lowered my head, afraid to look up and see the disappointment on his face. I'd betrayed him. Wow, I didn't expect that, he says, with an approving smirk on his face. What a surprise. Surprise? What did he just say? His words caught me off guard. I looked up and gave him a puzzled look. It took a few seconds, but then it finally hit me. A wide smile appeared on my face, and I let out a sigh of relief. I decided to surprise you for lunch, darling. I don't have much time, he says, starting to undress. He didn't notice my mussed hair, or the ruined bedspread, or the smell of another man on me. I can't believe he thought I was waiting here to be happy. What luck! This is so out of character for me. Doesn't he even know me? Thank God men think with their heads. I was still nervous and scared as hell, but I hid it well. Although I'd been lucky so far, I still wasn't out of the woods. I needed to satisfy him quickly and get him out of the bedroom, or better yet, out of the house. He leaned in to kiss me, but at the last moment, I realized that Chris's taste was probably still on my lips. Instead, I headed toward him. I grabbed him and immediately took him into my mouth as he stood in front of me. I couldn't escape the thought that this was exactly what I had done to Chris a few minutes earlier. I pulled him onto the bed and positioned myself on top of him to block his view of the closet. I continued to pleasure him. I hoped to make him leave quickly, but he had other plans. He wanted more. I didn't want to please him with Chris hiding in the closet. But I didn't see any way to avoid it. I just wanted to satisfy him and get him out of the house as quickly as possible, without making it too obvious. I was scared to death that something would go wrong. My marriage, my lifestyle, everything was hanging in the balance. One mistake, and my life would be ruined. He rolled me over onto my back, and I spread my legs wide for him. He indicated that he wanted to make me feel good, but I stopped him. Chris was really handsome. Just do it, I said. Yeah. With those words, he positioned himself above me again and kissed me. Wow, you're so cute, he says. Yeah, if you only knew why, I thought to myself. Oh, that's wonderful, I moaned. As my husband started on me, I cast a quick glance over his shoulder in the direction of the closet. Oh shit, I exclaimed. My husband, of course, thought I was praising him for his efforts, but it was actually secretly addressed to Chris, who was peering out of the closet watching us. What the hell is he doing? He's going to catch us. Chris continued to watch. The more he watched, the more my behavior changed. I had started pleasuring my husband out of a sense of self-preservation, in a moment of terror, but now I was extremely interested in it. The thought of my lover watching me doing it with my husband was so erotic. The fact that he was hiding in the closet with his head peeking out from across the room, it was all so satisfying. It was such an adrenaline rush when I almost got caught. I began to enjoy myself immensely. Get on top, he bellowed. He always liked the way I rode him, but I refused. If I was on top, he'd have a good view of the closet. I needed to stay in that position. No, just do it like this. I want it like this, hard and fast. I pulled his head down and started swiveling my hips up and up. I was engaging him in return, as hard and fast as I could. I was already all discharged. I was smiling to the delight of him and Chris. I'm sure we put on a good show for Chris. Every time I looked over my husband's shoulder, I could see Chris watching us. It was so good. It wasn't long before I began to marvel. Yes, oh shit. Harder, faster. Give it to me, baby. Yes. My husband let out a loud, prolonged wheeze, filling me up. I pressed my lips together. Fill me up, baby. I spoke in a voice loud enough for Chris to hear. You're the best, he said, slowly getting off me. My husband stood up, and I immediately jumped up after him. I was on full alert again. He was about to head for the bathroom, which was right across the hall from the dressing room, when I stepped toward him and pulled him away. You take the master bathroom, and I'll go in there. I rushed after him. He picked up his clothes off the floor and walked out of the room and into the main bathroom. I pretended to go to the bathroom, but I was actually waiting for him to finish so I could send him to work. I didn't want him to go back to the bedroom. I grabbed my robe and kissed him goodbye as he came down the stairs and headed to work. I ran over to the window facing the front of the house to make sure he was gone. I turned around, and there stood Chris. Damn, that was close, I remarked with a huge sigh of relief. It was fucking hot, Chris replies. Judging by the devilish grin on his face and erection, Chris was clearly enjoying the show. I can't wait to shake the brains out of you, he said. What are you waiting for? I replied, throwing off my robe, and we went back into the bedroom and lay on the bed. I was delighted as hell, and I wanted more. Chris immediately lowered himself on top of me, which took me by surprise. We were both so hot and delighted. I can't believe how delighted we both were. The events of that day switched both of us, and we had the best time of our entire relationship. When Chris went home, I showered and texted my husband to bring takeout dinner. I told him I was still pretty damn enthralled after that day. I couldn't wait to pounce on my husband again. He thought it was all because of our afternoon sex. Truth be told, what turned me on so much was the time with Chris and not the excitement of almost getting caught. I was relieved and grateful that I hadn't gotten caught and still had a husband and a way of life. That was the last time I invited someone over to the house while my husband was in town. The lesson was hard to learn.